You are now listening to Tired and Triggered Podcast, produced by Guerrero Film Company.
Welcome back to Tired and Triggered. We are kicking off season 2. I am super excited for today's episode. I have CM Bird here. She is a book author. And we've been talking about this for months now.
Yeah, since right before Christmas.
I know, and I'm so happy that we're finally doing this, but I do truly feel like things have a way of working out how it was supposed to be, because now you've released your 3rd book.
Absolutely.
So
the trilogy is complete.
Yeah, so that is super exciting. But she is a writer behind 3 powerful books, Bitter and the Bold, Failed and Derailed, and her newest release, The Jaded and the Just. Each book does carry its own weight as far as surviving trauma and different circumstances between healing. And I really hope that this episode can be a space for people who have maybe been in similar circumstances. And I'm just really excited to have you here and
Thank you.
Put everything out there. So I do know that your story was very public. And you've done a lot of news interviews, and there was a lot of news reports, and I feel like a lot of small town talk. People, make their own assumptions and things like that. But what pushed you into telling your story through writing?
So the main thing through writing is that you get so much more details. 10-minute interview, you're only going to get the key points, and a lot of it isn't even the true root cause of why I did what I did with going to the media. So I felt like writing the books would help people relate more to the smaller things of, the math added up with his age, my age, and my daughter's age, but that wasn't really the issue. The issues were what I was currently going through with the control, with the narcissism, with all of the police and judges, and just constantly being hunted and interrogated.
Yeah.
And those were the main issues that, for me, I felt like other people were probably going through as well, but because they didn't have the math, they weren't getting the attention that I was getting with my story.
Right. And was it therapeutic for you during the process of writing it?
Absolutely. That was probably why I started, was just the release of all this built up trauma just coming out in words and in writing that made me start feeling a lift, like just more airy, more light. I was finally coming back to me, like with all the things that I was going through. I felt very caged, very pushed down.
Yeah.
And then I started rising back up once I started getting it all out. Even if someone wants to write it down and don't publish, at least write it down. There's no reason to keep it all in.
Because sometimes it's hard to find the words for things like that.
Exactly. The spoken word can be hard. You might choke up. You might not be able to find the words. But I promise you, once you put pen to paper, it's going to start coming out like word vomit. You're just going to start writing things that you never thought you would.
But if another survivor right now is listening to this episode, what is something that you would want them to know or to tell them?
That's a very, very good question, because I want everyone to know that even if you feel like no one else is listening, I'm listening. I talk to so many women. I advocate for so many women. I'm still in touch with all the agencies that I was back then when I was going through the media.
That's
and
amazing.
I have people come to me and ask me for help, and I try and do the best I can to steer them in the right direction, give them advice on what they can possibly do. And it's not going to be the same situation that I was in, but there's always different avenues that you can explore to try to get your message across.
And I feel like that's I don't want to say perfect example, because it's not a perfect example, but it is, you took your circumstances and your trauma and you're making such light out of it and helping other people, which is an amazing thing.
That's all I want to do, because I remember like it was yesterday the way I felt when I was going through that and felt so hopeless, and I don't want anybody to have to feel that way.
Yeah.
If you don't think there's anybody out there that feels you, I feel you. Please reach out to me. I'll always be more than willing to help.
I love that. And with people making their own narrative and their own assumptions of your trauma, what did, when writing, what was it that made you like reclaim your story?
So a big thing was people felt like they had to pick a side. You know, it wasn't like oh, this is a sad story, let me move on. This was oh, I need to figure out what's going on, if she's wrong or he's wrong or she's right or he's right.
Right.
And pick a side. So yeah, there was a lot of people that did take sides. In either way, I never, even if you took his side, that's totally fine. You can have your own opinion and do whatever you want to do. And I had a lot of people that would reach out to me and be like, "Shame on you. This is not what happened." And you know what?
How would you know?
They weren't there,
Right.
So I just brush it off and never really let it affect me.
So to get into the actual trauma, so people are familiar, you were 16 when your whole life completely changed.
That's correct. I had just turned 16, and on one night that I was in a bar where I wasn't supposed to be, there was a 30-year-old man there who persuaded me to go home with him, and that night I did get pregnant by him.
Was it consensual? I know that is the most asked question. You've told me that. You've told me that that was the most asked question.
It is, and I kind of I touch on this in the book a little bit, and I cannot give you an answer
Okay.
because I feel like it could be subjective.
Okay.
Maybe it was for him, maybe it wasn't for me, maybe it wasn't for me at some point, maybe it was for me at another point. It's very controversial, and I'm okay with people saying that it was. Like, I wrote the book in a way that explains it to where at the end, if you say it was consensual, that's your opinion and that's fine with me, and if you say it wasn't, that's also fine. Like,
And regardless of the circumstance, either way, it's not right. And it's your trauma. And it was something you went
Yeah.
through. You know, so there's no either way how people look
Yeah.
at it or take
and
it.
to touch back on my previous point where that night wasn't really the issue. The issue was what followed the next 10 years after
Right.
of what I was put through. So, yes, that night started it, but that night was not the traumatizing vehicle that the next 10 years were to lead me to the PTSD, the anxiety that I
Right.
still struggle with today.
Yeah. Your first book, The Bitter and the Bold. This is basically a survivor's testimony and touches a lot on awareness and reform as far as custody and all of the court battlings and stuff that you dealt with. After surviving what you went through while trying to navigate motherhood at a young age,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, was there a moment when writing this book that it became too hard?
100%. So even during the writing process, when it became too hard, I paused, took a little while, and then got back to it. But then after I published, even, so a lot of people don't know this, I released it years ago
Okay.
and then pulled it because
Oh,
it was
wow.
so personal.
Yeah.
I was like, I just wasn't ready to have
It wasn't your
everything
time.
out
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then I was like, I started writing Failed and Derailed, and I was like, I want the first book to be out there before this book comes out because it's pertinent to this story.
Right.
So I went ahead and re-released a year ago on May 1st,
Okay.
this past May. So I got 3 books out, technically, in 1 year.
Now, that's amazing. 3 books in 1 year. But as far as how long was your writing process? Was this like years worth? Was this something like you kind of, I know you might have published them, but is this something you kind of like jotted down, notes you had in your head as you were healing and things, and kind of put it into a story, or how did that work?
The Bitter and the Bold definitely was like that. Like I said, it took me a little bit longer to write because of how heavy the material is and how much it brought up in me. But Failed and Derailed, I actually wrote the first rough draft manuscript in 4 months.
So that shows a lot of healing too, though.
It does, but also I was like fueled by heartbreak and espresso martinis,
And it just came out.
and it all started coming out. I actually wrote the last chapter first. That was the first thing I wrote in Failed and Derailed was the last chapter because it had just happened. Because these are based on real events,
Right.
The first two are.
Yeah.
The Bitter and the Bold and Failed and Derailed are inspired by true events. It really happened that way. And the characters are based on real people, too.
Yeah. Who I got to meet, the Logan. Yeah.
Don't spoil it.
Your daughter is a major source in all of this.
Yeah.
And your strength in your story. What, how did motherhood change you, especially when trying to navigate motherhood and survival and trauma at the same time?
So it's really sad because I felt like I was robbed of my experience of being a mom.
Yeah.
Like, because I was just trying to survive to get through, I couldn't really be the mom I wanted to be. I had to be the mom they told me I had to be.
Yeah.
And that was very, very challenging for me to stay inside these tiny little boxes that they placed me in. Like, you have to do this. Like, you have to have a good job, but not too good of a job because your schedule needs to be flexible. And
Right.
if you can't pick her up, you lose custody. If you don't make enough money, you lose custody. If you allow her to do something that we don't think she should do, you lose custody. So I was very, very walking a thin, thin line, and it was hard to stay on.
Yeah.
I am my
And
own
at a
person.
young age.
I was still growing up.
Yeah.
So I was just still rebellious in my own spirit and nature and like wanting to do things the way I want to do them.
Yeah.
So it was difficult, and I felt like I was wishing her life away. Like,
Yeah.
I can't wait till she's older because this is difficult for me. I can't wait till she's this age because this is hurting me and hard for me. And she was the same way. Like, I couldn't wait till she could make her own decisions instead of a judge making them for her.
And that's what I wanted to ask. Now that she is older, how does that work now? Is there ever this, because I know as a daughter, she's protective over her mom, and
Yeah.
she knows your story.
Yeah.
So how does that transpire? Is there any issues with that as far as...
So no one will truly know what we went through except for the two of us.
Right.
Which bonded us. Like,
Right.
It tremendously. Like, we are so, so close. So she, after the aftermath, of course, I'm not the only one dealing with things. She is
Right.
too. She has her own triggers. She has her own things that will upset her.
Yeah.
But we both have come a very long way in working on ourselves so that we can be better for other people.
Okay, so Failed and Derailed, what you navigated through that book, it's very raw emotionally. It shifts more into like the emotional aftermath, like fear of intimacy and closing yourself off and things like that. What was harder emotionally for you? Surviving the trauma or everything that came after?
I think everything that came after, because you get used to disassociating. Like,
Yeah.
once you get to a certain point where things are so overwhelming that you don't think you can go another day, you learn to turn it off
Yeah.
and just float on autopilot so that way you can get to the next thing.
Which is so exhausting.
Yeah, it is. And I got to a point where it was so easy for me to just turn things off where it affected other relationships, where
Yeah.
I wasn't feeling what I was supposed to feel or saying what I'm supposed to say, and I would just hold it in and not care.
Yeah.
So then once I found somebody I really wanted to be present with, it was so difficult. because you get used to it. It's like an automatic thing. So you have to consciously think, okay, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do and keep my feelings on, let them know what my feelings are, and then follow through with them. And that's so difficult when you're not used to doing that.
Right. And when you haven't done it for so long.
Yeah.
And that's completely unsafe territory for you going through that, you know. Do you feel like trauma taught you to expect abandonment or expect betrayal from everybody around you?
100%.
Yeah.
So I have abandonment issues that come out in anxious attachment styles.
Okay.
So with my trauma, I definitely developed a lot of anxiety and wanting to try to keep people, like, because they were always trying to take my daughter away, and I'd pull in
Right.
harder and closer to try to keep her. And now I relate that to the relationship that I was trying and failed and derailed.
That's a good one. And it's a little spicy.
It's okay, yeah. So I wanted to do each one a little different. So I was like, look, this is going to be a romance, so I'm going to just dive into it wholeheartedly.
Yeah, you
And
were very raw. You were very just open,
Yeah.
and I love that.
So it is a bit spicy. It's got a little something in there in certain parts, but not overly done. Like,
No, it's not.
the descriptions are tasteful.
Yes, very tasteful. And one thing I can say about that is somebody might not have went through a sexual trauma or maybe something exactly that you've been through for your story, but I feel like many people can relate to a lot of things in that story as
Yeah.
far as shutting their emotions off and things like that. That's many people could probably relate from that.
Yeah. And our attachment styles are completely opposite. So his is dismissive avoidant, which would trigger my attachment style.
Right, so-
with the trauma. So there's so many triggers for both of us in the story. And I tried to make it less about Logan and more about just my side of it. But I am coming out with a spin-off series that
What?
will, have his side of everything.
Okay, that's going to be good. I can't wait to read that.
I'm gonna release it in reverse order, so it's gonna be like his side of the Jaded and the Just, and
Okay.
then his side of Failed and Derailed, and then his own origin story.
Oh, that's
Like
gonna be
how
good.
I have mine for the Bitter and the Bold.
That's going to be really good.
And yes, he's a real person, and yes, he gave me permission.
Okay, so touching on that, what does healthy love look like for you now?
Healthy love is, it's okay to be triggered, and it's not usually the trigger that's the problem, it's the reason behind it. And once you figure out the reason behind it and you can work through it with that person and they understand and will work on it with you, then that's all that really you need when you're in a situation where you've had the past trauma and they've had the past trauma, and you come together and just work together to say, okay, what we're arguing about isn't the problem. Like, we need to figure out what the problem is, and it's us against that.
Right.
So we work together to come up with some sort of solution to where it works for both of us.
Yeah, I feel like you have to have a partner that's in it too.
Yeah.
When dealing with somebody with trauma or dealing with somebody who, has gone through things that you have or he has,
Yeah.
you have to have somebody that's willing to put the work in.
100%. As long as you are open with what your trauma is and you're actively talking about it and explaining it and saying, like, this is what is going on and this is what I need, then that should be okay. You should, don't be scared to talk about it. It's mostly like in Failed and Derailed when I'm not being open.
Yeah.
That's the problem. That's where you hit the walls. That's where you have the disconnects.
Yeah.
Like, for example, in the book where had this obsessive compulsive with deleting everything from my phone. Instead of telling him, this is the trauma I went through, this is why I do that, and it's not something that I'm hiding from you, and I think we could have progressed more
Right.
quickly. He'd be more understanding. I think I would have been more understanding of him and his trauma, and
But you were still sorting through trauma
I was
yourself to be
so-
able to just openly
I
communicate
was
that this
still
is why.
so closed off.
Yeah.
Like, still working through the being open and honest because
Yeah.
I would get triggered and then I would not want to share. And that's hard.
Yeah, it's very hard. What is something that your trauma stole from you emotionally aside from closing everything off?
I think it stole my light, you know? So I use it as my light as an example of like my charisma, my outgoing nature and things like that because that's how I am as a person. I'm very jokey, I'm very lighthearted, and going through that I felt like I couldn't be that person.
Yeah, you've mentioned through the books about how you were like this hard
Yeah.
person.
I felt like everyone was against me. I felt like I was on an island by myself. I couldn't trust anyone.
Yeah, I
couldn't
can't
tell
imagine.
anyone what was going on because I was scared that they would use that against me.
Yeah.
And the mental health struggles that I was going through at that time, I couldn't share with anyone because if someone found out that I was struggling,
What would that have done to
how
the
would
court case and everything else?
Right.
Because they used everything against you.
everything- like you can't, if you tell your best friend something and they tell someone that and then the other party finds out in some roundabout way, they will dig into it.
And you've touched in the books about a personal experience you went through with that.
I did.
Yeah. As a survivor, what is something that you want people to understand about survivors?
So people look at survivors and they think they want to be empathetic, but they don't do it in the right way, I don't think. They feel like they feel sorry for them, but not in the way that will lift them up.
So you feel like people feel sorry for you?
Right.
Okay.
In a way that kind of is like, oh, I feel sorry for you, like looking down on you
Right.
instead of saying, oh, wow, you are a survivor and you should be having anything you want to do, you should do it. Don't
Right.
feel like you can't. Because if you sit there and feel sorry for people feel sorry for you and then you start feeling sorry for yourself, you're not going to want to go out and do the things that you would normally.
Right.
Like you have ambitions and you have goals and you have things you want to achieve. Don't feel like you can't do that.
How long, and I know your healing journey is going to be forever. It's something you're always going to be going through.
Yeah.
But as far as when you got into a place where you felt like, wow, I'm getting back to myself. How long was that journey for you?
I mean, so after the final judgment, which was in 2022, and then 2024, I finally decided, I was at the end of 2024, I was like, okay, I need to do something to start on this journey of healing, because at first I just wasn't even trying.
Just surviving.
Yeah. Trying to get back to my equilibrium.
Right.
So once I did that, then I finally started going to therapy. I finally started talking to other people like they were people and not somewhat a weapon to be used against me.
Right.
And kind of, it's been 5 years now, almost.
And the only reason why I mentioned that is because people who have gone through trauma sometimes feel like, why am I not ever going to feel like myself again? And it just shows that
Yeah.
it's a long process. It's going to take a very long time.
And it's different for everyone.
Yeah, and
There's
everybody's
no
different.
timeline for one person.
Right. But I feel like people feel like they have to meet this timeline. Like,
Yeah.
why am I not better? Why am I not feeling like myself again? So I just wanted to kind of shed light on the fact that sometimes it's a very long process, but it can still happen.
And sometimes it takes a catalyst. Like me meeting a special person really provoked me to want to make a change.
And it wasn't easy at first.
And
It took,
wasn't.
yeah.
Wanting to and doing it are two
Right.
different things, but that's the first step, is you actually want to do it, and then you start finding out ways to get there, and it's one step at a time, and it is still going to be a struggle.
While sharing such a public story and doing the interviews and people knowing your story. How did you advocate for yourself publicly, but how did you also protect her?
That was so hard, and I was not prepared for that. So, as somebody who's never been in the public eye and is a very private person, they did not warn me enough, like how much I needed to protect her and how much I needed to guard myself. I did not realize like I should shut down my social media and right before it even airs. I did not realize that they were going to steal pictures from my accounts. I did not know the extent of this was even going to go viral.
Right.
I didn't know any of this. So
And years later, it still resurfaces. I just saw it 2 weeks ago. A news
you?
interview. I saw a news interview you did 2 weeks ago on
wow.
Facebook. And from years ago. Not
Yeah.
searching it, it just popped up. It just was reposted on Facebook.
Oh, I didn't know.
Which is,
So
good as far as, sharing your story with your books and everything. But I'm
Yeah.
just saying it cycles.
yeah, I had no idea that it was still cycling like that. That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
So during that whole thing, she wasn't even with me. He had sole custody of her. I wasn't even allowed to see or speak to her except for 4 hours a week.
It's crazy.
So as far as protecting her emotions and things like that, I couldn't. I wasn't there. I wasn't allowed to be around. So that was so hard to know that she's seeing all this from somewhere else. I'm not even there to explain it to her or what's going to happen. It was, yeah.
And how old was she when that happened?
She was 15, almost 16.
Now, with it recycling and her being older, does that affect her in any kind of way, like, or going through school? Going through school, how is that? Because, people talk, kids talk.
I don't think she even knows it's recycling because I didn't know.
Okay. Okay.
But we haven't had any
No issues with that.
issues. Like it hasn't come up in conversation or anything
Okay.
with her friends or not as of lately.
Okay.
Of course, back when it first aired.
I was
it
about to say, is that
was-
something that
her friends, yeah.
Yeah.
One of her friends' moms didn't want her to be friends with her daughter anymore because she didn't know what the truth was and she didn't want her daughter around her dad or this. And I understand that.
Right.
But, I mean, after everything happened, you should.
Right.
And she didn't have to contact her dad. She doesn't have to speak to him anymore, and she doesn't.
Right.
So all of her friends should have been allowed to see her after the fact, but that's their choice.
Yeah. You speak very open about being failed by the system, and you were absolutely failed by the system. Do you want to shed light on that, on what you feel like as far as going through a battle like you did for
Yeah.
people who may be in a similar situation?
It's a shame because people don't feel like they can turn to the right people in these circumstances, like law enforcement and the court system and people who are supposed to protect you
Right.
are not going to protect you. In fact, they tend to make it worse. Not in every situation, not in every circumstance, but in circumstances that I've heard about personally from people who have reached out to me that are in my similar situation have absolutely been dragged through the mud by these people just the way I have. And nothing changed until I went to the media. But not everybody has that opportunity because, like I said, not everybody has that math behind them. Like,
Right.
you have to have some sort of wow or shock factor for anybody to pay attention to you, which sucks.
Right.
Because I've had people reach out to me like, I have no custody of my kid. I haven't seen them I've seen them 4 hours in 5 years. Don't do drugs. Do not, as upstanding citizen, has a job, has had the same job for years. There's nothing that they're doing that warrants this.
Right.
Like, this is crazy to me.
Do you feel like this is a system in a whole, or is this a who you know, like it's who you know in a local system? Do you feel it's like it's a mixture of both?
Yes. So I think, unfortunately, it has to do a lot with money. I was very young. I had a part-time job. Didn't know anybody in the community. Like, I was a child.
Right.
He was well-established, wealthy, pillar of the community type.
Right.
So he had a lot of leniency, and he lived above the law he still does, for
Right.
a very long time. And I think other people have the same privilege, unfortunately.
Yeah. How do you still have to co-parent with him?
No.
No. Oh, because she's old enough, right?
So the final judgment was when she had just turned 16, and she no longer had to speak to him if she didn't want to.
Do you want to touch on the fact of, and you don't have to go into details or specifics just because there was or is a child involved in it, but as far as when you were co-parenting, how was that? How do you face somebody that when you just went through everything you went through with them over so long?
It was a challenge. Okay. So it was a very toxic thing because he would try to use her against me.
Right.
If I didn't do exactly what he wanted, when he wanted, then he would take it out on her. She would be punished. She would have to do this. I would be threatened with going back to court. He would threaten me with taking her away all the time. And the fact that they did start giving him like an inch, another inch every time we went back, and we went 2 or 3 times a year,
Right.
it was terrifying.
Yeah, because you just didn't know what was next.
Right.
It's like
So
sitting on the edge of your seat
he
waiting.
makes these threats, and I believe him.
Right.
Because
He's proved that at this point.
you're right. I can't remember a time where I felt safe during that whole period. Like, I constantly lived in fear that I was going to lose her
Yeah.
because of everything that happened. Like,
And it was like simple petty things. It was just like he would use any little petty thing against you.
any little thing.
That's insane. So let's get on your newest release.
Yeah.
Something a little bit more light and fun. And you said that you did have fun writing it.
Yeah, I did. So it was finally like something that I could really tap into my creative side with because it's fiction.
Yeah.
It's 10 years into the future, and it's kind of like my idea of justice wrapped up in a pretty bow. Like,
Classic energy with a little futuristic touch.
Yeah.
I'm so excited to get through it. But after your previous releases being more personal and a true story, and this being fiction and more fun, I feel like that shows a lot on your growth of healing. And did it feel more freeing when you were writing it?
it did. It felt like, okay, I'm going to come up with something that would just be like badass and something that could really shine in the fact that, okay, I'm taking these people down. Like, you messed with me, you messed with my kid.
Right.
Now it's time, like, to wipe everybody out.
So, what inspired the Jaded and the Just? Your story, right? I mean, everything that's in it is based off of, it's fiction, it's more fun, but it's still based off of the series of what you've been through.
Right. So
Okay.
it is the same characters that were in the first book, the judge, the attorneys, all the corrupt people.
Okay.
The detective, the sheriff,
Okay.
people like that.
And when your readers are reading this, what is something you want them to feel?
Just entertainment.
Okay.
Like, this time around is just pure entertainment.
Okay.
Nothing like, there are parts where it's still based on emotions. It definitely comes from the heart still. Like, the flashback chapters especially are very personal.
Okay.
But
So there's still a touch there.
oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you'll feel it. You'll still feel it between Logan and Krista, even
Okay.
though it's not real, like
Right.
tracking time. It's in the future. It's made up,
Okay.
but it's still very emotional at some points.
Okay. Is this a beginning of a new era for you as far as writing? I know you have a little the spin-off books coming, but how about as far as something fun and just creative?
Yeah, so I also want to do something totally separate from this story completely.
Okay.
I don't know what it's going to be yet, but I have some ideas. I've been writing some things down, and I do want to get there, yeah.
Perfect. Is there anything specific that you want to touch on or address that we didn't cover or go over?
No, I don't was anything else, I just wanted to really dive in this time with you because I knew you would ask questions that matter.
Okay.
Because all the interviews I've done before, it felt like it was just about that one thing,
Right.
about that one night. It was about what he did to me that
The
night.
actual trauma.
The actual trauma.
Yeah.
And I knew coming here and like having a real sit down, like I would finally get to tell things and say things that I never got to say before.
Yeah. And I feel like not only that, though, I love that for you, and I love that for people who also have went through something similar, too, because I know you have said that a lot of people have reached out to you, and it's just easier to have just one space to kind of address it all at one time. And I'm so happy that you came today. I really enjoyed this, and I've been enjoying your books, and I cannot wait to get through your newest one. And it was not all about the actual trauma for me. I mean, your story obviously matters to me, but shedding light on what you did with your trauma means so much more to me than anything, because I just feel like it's amazing to take something so heavy and traumatic that you went through and turn it into what you're doing. And
that's the inspiration I was hoping for with not just the trauma, but the healing process.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know how to navigate that, and they don't know where to start.
Or have a support system, or, you know, like people that were in your situation at the time, young, don't know anybody,
like
being
how
established
are you
yet.
supposed to come up against someone when you don't even have a bank account
Right,
yet?
right.
Like, you don't have a job, you don't have a bank account, like, you live with your mom, you're a child.
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
go up against the whole system?
But you did.
I
mean, you
did
had
my
a lot
best.
of, I would
Like,
say,
tried.
but you had a lot of trials throughout. But
Yeah, honestly, the people that came in and really was like, look, we are here to support you. Save Lives Foundation, Stacey Trish, she came in and was like, oh no, this is not going to continue to happen. My parents, my mom, she really supported me with keeping my child while I was in court, while I was at my
Right.
attorney's office, while I was doing this. One of my aunts, she helped me financially a lot during this time. If I didn't have her, I would have had to represent myself way more than what I did.
right.
I did had to do it a few times, but it was like, I don't know about the law. So, I mean, there was a lot of people that came in and said, look, we're not going to let this continue to happen to you. We're here to help. And I hope that everybody has that. I know everybody doesn't have that.
Right.
But like I said, I'm here to advocate for anybody who wants to reach out to me.
And I love that. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode, and huge thank you to author C.M. Bird for coming on and sharing not only the stories behind her books, but the deeper emotions and experiences and inspiration that actually shaped them. But I really admire you for just your strength and raw emotions that you've turned into writing.
Jordan, and I really appreciate you having me, and I love your whole motto of women supporting women. And
I cannot wait to see everything you have ahead of you, and I really appreciate you being here today. And I really hope that somebody can resonate with this, maybe hear something you needed to hear, share it with someone who may need to hear. And as always, like, share, follow, all the things. I love you guys, and I will see you on the next one.
thank you, Jordan. I really appreciate you.
Bye.
Bye.